Lutfi H, Queens, New York City. Salam Sheikh Sensei Mufti. Hope all is well with you. My question is how to get the reward of 25-27, more in reward in praying in congregation, both for male and female. Shukran.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair, akhi al-habib. My beloved brother and friend, may Allah bless you in both worlds. Ameen. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that the prayer made in congregation is superior to the prayer made individually 27 times. And one narration, it states 25 times. We all know this is an authentic hadith that's collected in the Sahih. And it is as it states. If you pray in congregation, then bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, your prayer will be accepted by Allah as long as it was done properly with all of the valid or the conditions, the prerequisites of the prayer, etc., with sincerity and following the sunnah, etc. And hopefully your prayer will be accepted by Allah Azza wa Jalla. You'll receive that reward. The scholars of Islam, they have certain differences on what is the bare minimum or the least that a congregation can be. Is it 2 people or 3? An imam with 2 behind him, or an imam with 1 person on his right side? Everybody understand this? There's some of the ulama who say that aqallul jama'ah, the least that a jama'ah can be is 2. And if my memory serves me correctly, Al-Hafidh bin Hajj rahimahullah ta'ala, this was his opinion regarding the issue in Fathul Bari. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
N.A. Toronto, Ontario. Is it permissible to establish Fard Salah on a moving vehicle, i.e. truck drivers, as long as you're facing the Qibla?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Where's the question from?
Toronto, Ontario.
Toronto, Ontario. As far as the Fard Salah in a moving vehicle, as long as you're facing the Qibla, then it depends. Can you stand up or not? In most cases, a person is either driving or in the passenger side. So if you're not standing up, even if you can face the Qibla, you shouldn't do that. Unless you can't stop. Unless it's extremely difficult, inclement weather outside. Very, very cold. Extremely scorching hot. It's torrential rain. Wild, vicious animals outside, etc. If that isn't the case, then it's upon you to stop your vehicle and to stand and to face the Qibla. And you have the option of combining the Salah. You have the option of combining the Salah as a traveler. As far as shortening the Salah, then perhaps the correct view, and Allah knows best, is that it's mandatory to shorten the Salah when you travel. As was the tarjih of Al-Shawkani and As-Sana'ani and others. That the making Salah that's 4 into 2 is mandatory and not an option. Combining the Salah being an option. What's important is, also I believe Ibn Hazm as well. That's the view that I feel is most correct. Is that it's mandatory to shorten the Salah when you travel. What's important is that stop the vehicle, face the Qibla, stand up, do the rest of the conditions of the prayer. As far as voluntary prayer, la bas, as the authentic Sunnah teaches us, it's fine with that. But the Fard prayer, stop the vehicle, face the Qibla and stand up. Do not pray sitting down, even if you're facing the Qibla. As far as on a truck or a boat or something and you're standing up facing the Qibla, that's fine while you're moving. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you have the ability to stop, then stop. You have to have some basic fiqh of the traveler, whereas you know that you have to go somewhere, or it's an inappropriate place right now, or you fear for your life or danger, or whatever the case may be, then delay the dhuhr to asr. وهكذا. Wallahu alam.
NB, Toronto, Canada. Hayakallah Sheikh. If one studied different texts on tajweed and someone asks you to teach them the Quran, although you haven't completed its memorization and their recitation of the Quran contains major mistakes, does it become haram for you to refuse?
Some of the Salaf Salih, I believe, some say it was Ali ibn Abi Talib, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, or others, they would say, or they used to say, إن العلم كان نقطة فكثرها أو فكثره الجهال أو الجهلة. They say that knowledge back in the day was simple and easy compared to a nukta, like this, a drop of ink, okay, on my fingertip. And then the juhal, the ignorant people, they came and they made it into a whole entire bottle. Knowledge was like this, and then people made it like that. I.e., as if Ali radiallahu anhu, or the others who said this statement, they're saying that knowledge was basic and easy, and then people made it complex and difficult. They made it unnecessarily intricate. If you have the ability to recite the Quran properly, whether you studied text or not, but you're better than this one and they're in need, bismillah, teach them, as the Prophet ﷺ is quoted to have said. If you can help out your brother, then do so. Help out your brother. Whether it's pertaining to ruqya or other than the ruqya. The general concept. مَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ مِنْكُمْ أَنْ يَنْفَعَ أَخَاهُ فَلْيَفْعَلْ. So what's important is that if you have basic proficiency in the tajweed, let alone if you're good, if you're skilled, you study texts, finished books, and you're good, alhamdulillah, you don't have to be the best, but you're good, especially if you're better than this one and they have major problems, bismillah. And when we talk about ijaza and this sheikh and this one and that one, it doesn't mean that you can't help people out on a low level or a basic level. Do what you can, help out as you can. You don't need no certificate to help out a Muslim that's clearly in need. All right, so that's with regards to any type of knowledge. As long as you know what you're talking about, and as long as you stop at your limit. Wallahu alam.
M.Y. Dundee, Scotland. Should one combine memorization of Quran and Hadith or finish Quran first?
Depends on what type of mind you have. If you can multitask, multitask. It depends on how old you are. If you're younger or if you're older. If you're younger, focus on the Quran perhaps. You're a little older, you don't have as much time. It also depends on what you aspire. Do you aspire to memorize the entire Quran? Or you just aspire to have a good amount of Quran memorized? To lead the salah properly, you have to lead people in the salah to know the basics, to be basically proficient. You don't have to memorize the whole entire Quran. It's not mandatory to be a student of knowledge or a scholar. It's not mandatory. What's mandatory is that you have what you need to quote. Whether that's Juz Amma, Juz Tabarak, the first 3 Juz, the 7 longest, whatever you need. And I'll say this, that there are certain people who may memorize the whole entire Quran or have memorized the whole Quran, and they're not even that good. They're not even that sharp. If you ask them a question, what's this verse, quote this, they can't. And they have ijazah. So what good is it if you can't pull it from your hip? Metaphor, if you can't just whip it out, what good is it? And then there are other people who've just memorized Juz Amma, but they know it proficiently. They can quote it. And they know this verse is about Aqidah, this is about Salatul Eid, this is about Dhabh, Nahar, this is about Kada, this is about Kada. And that's all they need. And anything outside of Juz Amma, they don't speak about. So it's about efficiency or proficiency. That's what it's about, not abundance. So if you plan on memorizing the whole Quran, that's one thing. If you're younger, that's one thing. If you want to be a full-blown student of knowledge, that's one thing. If you just want a little bit, it depends. It depends. If you can do both, do both. If you can't, focus on one, focus on one. It depends on how old you are. It depends on how long, how far you plan to go, and what you want from knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best.
H.A. Toronto, Ontario, Canada. If a student was compelled to take a philosophy course to graduate, is it blameworthy for the Muslim student to tone down their participation in class so as to not get on the teacher's bad side?
Please explain. Repeat the question, please.
If a student was compelled to take a philosophy course to graduate.
Okay, of course. Tayyib.
Is it blameworthy for this Muslim student to tone down their participation in class so as to not get on the teacher's bad side?
Why would they get on the teacher's bad side? If you participate in a class, I don't see why you would get on the teacher's bad side, especially on a topic such as philosophy, in which, to my limited knowledge, the whole concept of philosophy is open for thought, open for debate, open for discussion. So if a Muslim is in a philosophy class, and there are different types of philosophy, and a lot of people, they make the error of broad brushing philosophy. All philosophy is not blameworthy. All philosophy isn't blameworthy. Certain types, certain categories, certain aspects without a question, kufr. No doubt about that, and haram. And there are other types of philosophy which doesn't necessarily have to be kufr or haram. How you think, how you deduce, how you extract, how you look at life, how you deal with certain things. So it depends on what type of philosophy it is. Eastern philosophy is different than Greek philosophy, and so on and so forth. So on and so forth. All right, Confucius or Aristotle. Okay, it's different types of philosophy, different types of philosophers. All right, different types of philosophers. What's important is that you participating in a class. I don't think you should get on the teacher's bad side. It doesn't mean that you agree with it. It doesn't mean that it's your aqidah, but it's a class that you have to take. So they say, what is the question? What is the response? What is this? What is the history of that? If they ask you, what is the history of religions, formal religions, organized religions? You answer the question based off of the information that the teacher gave you. They say, it is said, they report it. It doesn't mean you have to believe that. It doesn't mean that you have to believe that. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ says, Inna Allah kataba al-ihsan ala kulli shay. That you're supposed to do well in anything that you do. It doesn't mean you have to believe that to do well in the class. Obviously, it depends on the teacher. If the teacher wants you to say something specific, this is what you believe, then that's a different story. What's important is the Muslim should excel in whatever the Muslim does. You should excel in it, all right? And some of the Salaf al-Salih, they used to say about some of the narrators of hadith that were liars. Some of them would say, In kunta kadhaban, fakul muhsinan. They would blame some of the bad fabricators and say, if you're going to be a liar, then at least be a good liar. If you're going to lie, then be a good liar. Yeah, everybody saying this. If you're going to fabricate hadiths, then cover your tracks. Don't narrate something stupid and foolish, saying that you met Aisha 10 years after she clearly died. If you're going to be a liar, then do what? Have some skill in it. So the point is that if you want to take the philosophy class, you should excel. And it does not mean that you have to believe in that, and that is your aqidah. It does not mean that. Allah knows best.
YR, London, UK. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. How long is a man allowed to grow his hair? Is there a limit such as up to the shoulders?
Before we move on to the answer to this question, just reflect on the issue and the story that's mentioned that the Jewish man used to put the trash in front of the Prophet ﷺ's home. And the Prophet ﷺ would be patient and would persevere. And days went by and there was no trash in front of his door. And the Prophet ﷺ is quoted to have went to the Jewish man and, said, what's the matter? I don't see any trash in front of my house. I'm afraid something has to be wrong if there's no garbage in front of my house. Or as the British brothers and sisters say, rubbish. There's no rubbish in front of my house. The Jewish man is quoted to have said, has your religion commanded you to do this? And the Prophet ﷺ is quoted to have said, yes. And the Jewish man is supposedly had accepted Islam, saying, made the shahada based off of that. So just stop and look at that now. Does your religion command you to be kind to me and I'm evil to you? He said, yes. And that pierced his heart. So perhaps a philosophy teacher or any other class, I don't know if the teacher is a Muslim, but it seems if they're not a Muslim, the teacher, the professor, you can go and tell the teacher, or the teacher can see from him or herself and says, wow, this is a Muslim. I know what's in these books. I know this stuff that's in the philosophy class in Islam is like the sheep and the wolf. They don't mix. Yet and still the top grade, the top student is a Muslim. This Muslim sister, this Muslim brother got the top score in the class, and it's something that he or she doesn't even believe in. And they may ask you, does your religion tell you to excel? Does your religion tell you to do good in something that you don't even like, that you don't even believe in? You say, yes. The only reason why I participated in class, the only reason why I got the top score is because of the prophetic anecdote that says, indeed, Allah has prescribed perfection upon all things. They may become a Muslim based off of that. And Allah knows best. As far as the question here regarding how long can a man grow his hair, many of the people of knowledge, they say that a man is allowed to grow his hair to the tips of his ears and or his shoulder or his shoulder blades. And they say that anything that goes beyond this shouldn't be done. Perhaps it can be a means of imitating a woman. Now, this isn't what all of the ulama say, nor is there necessarily a crystal clear-cut dalil stating that it's haram to have this length. All right? The general concept that the Prophet ﷺ لَعْنَ الْمُتَشَبِّهِينَ مِنَ الرِّجَالِ بِالنِّسَاءِ. Okay? He cursed, he asked Allah's curse, he declared that Allah's curse is upon those men who imitate women. Who imitate women, who want to be like women and look like women. That's a general rule in Islam, no question. But does that give a specific length? This is okay, but that's bad. Do we have that? Let alone the concept of culture. Certain cultures having long hair, without a question, is imitation of women, no doubt. And there are other cultures in which that's not the case. Whether a person comes from a Norse culture, from Scandinavia, Norway, some of the greatest, strongest, bravest warriors had long hair. And it was well known that they weren't women. Okay? Or other cultures, let's say, for example, just an example, Rastafari culture. Okay? The Rastafari religion. Culture and religion, both. In which men grow their hair in dreadlocks. Their hair is long. And he's not ever confused or ever thought of being a woman at all. Now, we're not getting into the rulings of dreadlocks or the permission. We're making an example. Or a person comes from Italy or Sicily. Or a person comes from this place or that place and he has a ponytail. Portugal, whatever the case may be. And he has long hair or long braids. It's well known he's a man. He has a beard, he has a mustache, he has broad shoulders, he's a man. Nothing about this man is feminine or soft. He may be a cold-blooded killer. Everybody understand this? Cold-blooded killer, hitman. And he has a long ponytail. And no one confuses him with being a woman. Now, we can't say that about other cultures in which a man who has long hair, he allows it to grow, and he looks like a woman. So it depends on the place. It's relative. It's relative. Okay? I can't say that a length is haram and this length is okay. What the Prophet ﷺ had, how long the Prophet ﷺ allowed his hair to grow, it doesn't mean that that's the limit. It does not mean that that is the limit. Let alone the fact that in some cultures, if a man had hair to his shoulders, he could be considered to be feminine. And he's imitating a woman if he has hair to his shoulders. Also, the style of the hair. The style of the hair. All right. How is your hair long? How long is it? How does it look? What type? Do you have braids or plaits? Is it cut? There's different ways of distinguishing these things. And most importantly, how you carry yourself. How you carry yourself. There are certain people who have short haircuts and they're gay, homosexual men. There's certain people who have short haircuts and they're feminine. They're not homosexuals, because all homosexuals aren't necessarily feminine. Many people, you can't tell that they're gay unless it's a very, very, very severely trained eye to pick up on certain things. But he's maybe a muscle-bound type of person who's not feminine, and he sleeps with men. Okay? Or someone who isn't gay, who isn't a homosexual, and he has short hair, but he's a little feminine. He has a little bit of feminine characteristics or feminine traits with him. And there's a brother who has long hair, who you won't even look at twice. You wouldn't bump into him. You wouldn't step on his foot. He's not feminine what? At all. Allah knows best.
AO, London, UK. What is the ruling on making an oath? If I say it by anger, what I'm saying, and know what I'm saying, is it valid or void?
If you make an oath with the intention to make an oath, then you've made an oath. Then you've made an oath. If you did something by accident, you were coerced, you were extremely angry, something that you didn't realize what was going on, then that's a different story. Allah knows best.
OR, Springfield, Virginia. How does one overcome?
Overcome what? Next question.
UI, Ottawa, Canada. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Can you please elaborate on the ayah? We have made the Quran easy for remembrance. So is there any who will remember?
I believe it's quite clear. Allah says we have made the Quran easy for remembrance. So will anyone take a reminder? Allah Azza wa Jalla, He made the Quran simple and easy. It's one book. The language is crystal clear. Its preservation is crystal clear. Its meanings have been explained by the Prophet ﷺ, directly or indirectly. As Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah has clearly defended that view, that the Prophet ﷺ taught the tafsir of the entire Quran. Verbally, specifically, through his actions, through the teachings of his disciples. The Quran is simple and easy. Everyone around the world memorizes the same Quran. A child in Libya memorizes the Quran just like a child in Madagascar. just like a child in Australia, just like a child in Bolivia. They all memorize the same Qul Huwallahu Ahad. And anyone who actually earnestly puts forth effort to learn the Quran, he'll find it very easy. He'll find it easy. Are certain things challenging? Yes. Do certain things take concentration and focus and sacrifice? Yes, but it's generally easy. Let alone if you look at the other religious books and scriptures. What is the Torah? What is the Tanakh? How many books are included in that? This version, that version, this language, this translation, so on and so forth. The Quran is not like that. Let alone the Quran, how it's recited in a melodic or rhythmic tone. وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا. Simple, easy. And Allah asked the question, who will take remembrance from the Quran? Who will give 30 minutes a day? Allah says, who will give a little bit of time to the Quran? I'll give you 24 hours out of the day. You can't sacrifice 30 minutes for my book, for my speech? 24 hours out of the day? You can't give 1 hour to Allah's book after Fajr before you go to sleep? Can't. So it's easy and simple for those who actually want it. So Allah, He asked this question, فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. Will anyone take remembrance? Will anyone think and ponder on how beautiful and how simple this Quran is? And Allah knows best.
M.Y. Dundee, Scotland. If someone is memorizing bulugh, how should he revise previous hadith?
With regards to revising in general and revising previous hadiths, and obviously it's always easier to do it with somebody else. It's always easy to do it with a partner. And it's easier when there's a group. 5 brothers, 5 sisters, whatever the case may be. It's always easier. It makes it fun. It makes it challenging. And in different ways. Opening up the book, closing it, and saying it. Okay? You see what I'm saying? Open up the book. You say, then you do it a second time. Third time. And then you do that 10 times, for example. Or read the hadith 10 times. Then you close it and see if you can say it. And then you recite it 3 times or 5 times, and you move on to the next hadith. That's one way of doing it. Or writing them down. Every hadith that you memorize, write them. Keep writing. Write for an hour, 2 hours. Or in a class. Or you have a trivia. Like they do in Yemen. They would do in Yemen. They would say, right? Hadith Abi Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, qala Rasulullah sallallahu, and you have to finish it. Call out. Or they would just say the hadith. لا تكذبوا علي فإنه من كذب علي فليلج النار. حديث من وأخرجه من حديث علي أخرج البخاري والإمام مسلم في المقدمة مثلا, for example. So it's different ways and different styles of reviewing and revising in general, let alone hadith. One of the ways of doing it is to do it in an easy, fun manner. And the more hands, the less work. The more hands, the less work. Like construction, like labor. More people lifting, less back-breaking work. And it's funner. And you look forward to it. And also, you feel ashamed and embarrassed. Because I got to go into the majlis again and I didn't memorize. Just like a drug addiction. One of the ways of helping people get off of drugs is that you have to sit in a room. And anyone who relapses and goes back into the addiction, he has to tell the rest of the group and he feels ashamed and embarrassed. It's a very powerful way of attacking the human psyche. Shame. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he says, إِنَّ الْحَيَاءَ لَا يَأْتِي إِلَّا بِخَيْرٍ. Kama qala says, shyness doesn't bring anything except good. There's nothing that can come out of shyness except for good. Everybody understand? It's being afraid and embarrassed that you don't have your homework in front of the rest of the people. Wallahu a'lam.
F.A. Spain, Madrid. Have you benefited from Imam Al-Ghazali's works? What was his field?
With regards to the works of Imam Al-Ghazali, have I benefited from his works? I think everybody on one scale or one level or another has benefited something from the works of Al-Ghazali. Allah have mercy upon him. Have I read all of his books extensively, studied them, memorized them? Is he one of my favorite authors, so on and so forth? I can't say that. But I have opened up Ihya Ulum ad-Din and as well the Mukhtasar as well, and read from it and studied it and taught it many times, different chapters and different concepts from the book. Walillahi alhamd. May Allah have mercy upon Al-Ghazali. He put forth beneficial service to the Ummah, no doubt about that. And he also had mistakes and he had errors. He had mistakes and he had errors, just like any other human being, any other scholar. some scholars, they differ in their levels of mistakes and amount of mistakes and consistency of mistakes, and the difference between a issue of a khata or actual khata ilmi, something that's a principle inside one's mind in which it came out in a mistake and not just a slipping of the pen. All right, so that's with regards to Al-Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala. As far as his field, then when you read his books, or let's say for example Ihya Ulumuddin, which also the takhrij of that book of Al-Iraqi, okay, Al-Mughni, all right, is one of the most beneficial books of takhrij in the sciences of hadith as well. What's important is that Al-Ghazali rahimahullah, you read just for example Ihya Ulumuddin or the other books that he wrote in different fields, whether it was wa'af, exhortation, whether it was usul al-fiqh, whether it was fiqh itself, وهكذا. Wallahu a'lam.
UI, Ottawa, Canada. May Allah bless you, Sheikh. Can you please elaborate on the story of Musa alayhi salam and the magicians? Did the magician's stick turn into snakes, or was it an illusion?
The question is from Canada?
Yes.
I think this is a ruse. Sounds like a homework assignment from one of the Canadian students. Allah knows best. I don't know. It could be wrong, but it sounds like it's someone from Canada trying to get one of the homework questions answered. Allah surely knows best. Right now, I'm going to stick with my gut feeling. I want to follow my instincts. As we know, follow your instincts because they're normally right. They're usually right. And we're going to skip this question. It seems like a homework assignment that was given to one of the disciples from Canada. Allah knows best. Just pass me a napkin. Tissue.
M from Brooklyn, New York. Can you say dua for sleep and ayat before bed if you are junub?
The view that I feel is most correct from the ulama is that it's no sin for a junub to recite the Quran. It's no sin for one to recite the Quran, for one who doesn't have wudu, to touch the mushaf, etc. Wallahu alam.
H.A. New York, New York. Assalamu alaikum Mufti. Did the Prophet ﷺ have sexual intercourse with Aisha radiallahu anha?
Repeat the question, please.
Did the Prophet ﷺ have sexual intercourse with Aisha radiallahu anha?
The Prophet ﷺ, he married Aisha radiallahu anha. It was his wife. And she is our mother. May Allah be pleased with her. The Prophet ﷺ, he married her and he lived with her as a husband. Next question.
Nuruddin M, Birmingham, UK. Assalamu alaikum. May Allah bless you and your knowledge. What is the correct interpretation of the hadith? Allah created Adam in his image.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. May Allah bless you as well. There are different interpretations from the ulama of the sunnah with regards to his image. What's meant by his image? Is it yani Surah Al-Rahman? Inna Allah khalaqa Adam ala suratihi. His surah, or the surah of Allah, or the surah of Adam? What's important is, whether it's this or whether it's that, Allah Azza wa Jalla, he created Adam to hear and to see. He created Adam with a face. Okay? He created Adam with a face and created him with the ability to see and the ability to hear. Okay? Allah Azza wa Jalla, he has the attributes of hearing and seeing. And Allah Azza wa Jalla, he has a wajh. Dhul Jalali wal Ikram. And Allah knows best.
ZU, Birmingham, UK. Assalamu alaikum, Ustad. What is the correct way from the sunnah for a third person to join two people praying together?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I believe we mentioned this the other day. There's different ways. One way is to walk into the masjid and perhaps the imam sees you and there's enough space for the imam to take a few steps. Then that's one way. Another way is for the imam or for you to get on the other side of the imam, the left side. Or for you to make a humble gesture, like, or even if you spoke to them, Assalamu alaikum, can I come into the salah? And the one that was on the right side of the imam, he voluntarily stood backwards, moved back, and you joined him. All right? Different ways, different styles, different madhabs among the ulama. Those who say that you should tap someone on the shoulder and pull them back gently, they have a proof for it. It's not necessarily the most authentic proof, but there is a proof for it. What's important is if there is space, the Imam should move forward and you shouldn't move anybody back. If there's no space for the Imam to move forward, then perhaps it's best to get on the left side of the Imam. And if it's very tight space, it's also permissible to put another person on the side of the Imam if he had two people on his side. وَهَكَذَا Wallahu alam. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. ST, Brooklyn, New York. My stepfather was married to my biological grandmother. He has a son that is not my grandmother's. Is his son mahram for me? Barakallahu feek, Shaykh.
Please repeat the question.
My step grandfather.
Step grandfather. So therefore, we have a step grandfather. If it's your step grandfather, then it's like your father. The rulings of mahram is that the father, no matter how up it goes, you can't marry your father, can't marry your stepfather. Your stepfather, step grandmother, etc. He married your mother, etc. You're his stepdaughter. He had intercourse with her. They've lived with each other. Is mahram. Father, grandfather, etc. You can't marry them. Everybody clear on this? Continue.
Was married to my biological grandmother.
Grandmother, mother, same as well.
He has a son that is not my grandmother's.
He has a son from another woman. Clear?
Is his son mahram for me?
Is his son a mahram for me? Look at it like this. If it was your father, if your father had a son from another woman, would he be a mahram for you or not? Can you get married? The same ruling applies here with regards to grandparents. Clear, inshallah? Allah knows best.
FO, London, UK. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My question is, though it may seem small, I am unsure of the ruling on doing one's eyebrows. I am married. My husband likes for me to clear them up. I have naturally thick eyebrows, and so can I remove strands of hairs just above my eyelids?
It's nothing wrong with having a question that's small, and it's not a small question. All knowledge is important as long as it's pertaining to that which is beneficial, the deen. What's important is, I would advise you to leave your eyebrows alone. To stick with the words of the Prophet ﷺ, not to touch the eyebrows, and to be pleased with your natural beauty. To be pleased with your natural beauty. Unless it's something which is extremely unsightly, very outlandish. Okay, if there was something that was irregular and abnormal, then that's a different story what the people of knowledge mention. And also, the question is also going to be based off of, without a question, just people in general, how they vary on their types of hair and the amount of hair, let alone race. And which certain races, this amount of hair or this type of hairiness is normal. It's acceptable. It's known. Someone from this race is very, very, very hairy, man and woman. A woman from another race, it is abnormal for her to have that amount of hair on her legs or her arms or her back or her lip, her mustache, etc. So it depends. So if it's something which is normal, leave it. If it's something which is abnormal, then perhaps that's a different story. I would advise you to leave the eyebrows as they are, unless it's something which is outlandish. Allah knows best.
M from Brooklyn, New York. How can you make dua on behalf of your child if you enter the bathroom, or dua ayat for sleep?
First of all, you get your child, you teach your child to learn it, step by step, piece by piece. The general rule is ask Allah to protect them. Ask Allah to protect them. Whether you said, Allahumma inni u'idhu waladi hadha, I ask you to protect him, this son of mine, min al-khubthi wal-khaba'ith. That's one thing, perhaps one can say that. A general dua, Allah protect them, Allah keep them safe from the harms of the khubth and the khaba'ith. وَهَكَذَا Wallahu alam.
M.Y. Dundee, Scotland. How do I gain understanding of what I am memorizing from wudu? May Allah bless you and grant you and us all sincerity.
It depends on what you're doing with Bulugh al-Maram. Are you studying it, or are you just trying to memorize it for a short period of time? You're memorizing just to lock it down. If you're memorizing it to lock it down, then just focus on memorizing it. It's a virtue in memorizing it, and it's a fa'idah in memorizing it. It's going to come. And if you're memorizing it and you want to have the sharh as you go along, or you're actually studying the book in a class or camp or school, then you read the sharh. And you also listen to the sharh. Whether it's your teacher that's explaining it to you, your sheikh, your tutor, your mentor, a senior pupil, or whether it's Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen, or As-Sanani, or this one or that one, so on and so forth. وهكذا. Last but not least, the hadiths that are outside of Bulugh Maram, because Bulugh Maram is considered to be a byproduct. All of those hadiths come from other books. So anytime the author says Muttafaqun alayh, then the sharh is in Bukhari and the sharh is in Sharh Muslim. You can find it there. So an example of this, the hadiths that we covered in Lu'lu' Marjan, those hadiths are also found where? In Bulugh Maram. وهكذا. So it depends on what level you're on, studying all Arabic, studying English, وهكذا. What's important is that you get a basic, simple understanding of each hadith. Perhaps that will aid you and assist you in having a better memory of those hadiths. When you know what it's supposed to be and how it's supposed to sound, it doesn't make sense like that. And Allah knows best.
Assalamu alaikum. Shamli M from Toronto, Canada. What is the ruling on obeying traffic laws?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You should obey the traffic laws as long as those traffic laws don't go against Kitab and Sunnah. As long as they don't go against the deen, as long as bil ma'ruf, it's nothing that goes against the Islamic rulings, then obey them. Anytime it's causing you from performing one of your Islamic obligations, then that's a different story. But be mindful of the consequences of breaking those traffic laws, getting stopped, getting pulled over, getting a ticket, your license being revoked or whatever. I don't know the rules of Canada. It's a bit different than the United States. But just be mindful of it. Let's make a hypothetical example. I'm not encouraging anyone to do this, but this is a hypothetical example. I'm running late. I have to be somewhere for Jumu'ah. Whether I'm the khatib or going for Jumu'ah on time. I'm at a red light. There's no cars coming. There's no cameras, no this, no that. I'm not going to run nobody over. It's no hazard. And I really need to go. And the light is holding me up. And you went past the red light for the sake of Jumu'ah. That's one thing. It's one thing. But just running red lights because it's not in the Kitab and the Sunnah, I can do whatever I want to do, it's dar or kufr, that's going to lead to problems. And that may also give a bad image and a bad impression of the Muslims. Muslims don't want to obey traffic laws. And last but not least, the truth is to be said, even if it offends somebody, you just look overseas in the Middle East. Look at one of the worst things about living in the Middle East is driving. Anyone who's lived there, he knows the driving is horrendous. Saudi, Egypt, wherever you go, it's crazy. The roundabout. Anyone who's been overseas, they know about the roundabout. I've never been to Egypt, but some people have been to Egypt, they call it the Wad al-Maut. They call it the roundabout of death. I personally have seen people dead in the street in Medina, wallahi, with a puddle of thick burgundy blood, ran over. I've been in all types of crazy cabs, all types of experiences, car accidents. One of the reasons why it's so chaotic and hectic overseas in the lands of the Muslims is because there are either no traffic laws or the traffic laws are ignored and they're not obeyed and they're not enforced. They're not enforced. They aren't enforced. So the Salah teaches us to be on time, to stop, to wait, to come, to be. The prayer is a major system of life. Why aren't the Muslims benefiting from the thing they do 5 times a day at least? And it's manifested in the car. You look how stingy, how selfish, how self-centered the Muslims are when they drive. They cut you off like it's nothing. And don't you dare cut them off. They will beep their horn. They will scream and holler. They'll say, up your mother. Wallahi, I've seen this. Going to make umrah, driving to make umrah. Guy said this. He said this to the guy on the car. He said, ummak. Just like that. Up your mom. Just like that. Waliyadu billah. How many people did he cut off? Did he cut in front of? How many crazy U-turns did he make? So this is a very selfish mentality of many Muslims overseas. They don't care about what they do to others. But the moment you do it to them, a'udhu billah. It's haram, taqillah. Just like in America as well. The Muslims who come from different countries, not all of them, but I said these Muslims, they'll be prejudiced. They'll be racist. They'll be prejudiced against people that don't come from their countries like it's nothing. But the moment the president bans certain countries from traveling, or the politics say, oh, the United States is prejudiced. Donald Trump, the president, is prejudiced. He's against Arabs. He's racist. He treats Arabs a funny way. How do you treat other people? How do you look at other people? How do you deal with other people? Are you hasty? Do you cut people off in line? But someone cuts you off in line, you start quoting ayat, astaghfirullah, wallah, la ilaha la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. You hear all of that. So the Muslim needs to really think about this now. Okay? Do you want America or Canada to be like those countries in which the driving is like insanely crazy? I've never seen nothing like that when I went to India. The driving, it was like literally, it made Saudi look like nothing. It was like bumper cars. Like literally, you're just in a plate. It's bumper cars. It's like it's no lights, no traffic, nothing. It's crazy. So what would happen if there were no traffic laws? And everyone hates the traffic cops. Wallahi, the brother comes into the masjid, in this masjid, the traffic cop. Everybody looks at him funny. Everybody gives him a bad look. What are you doing in here? You work for them. You do this, you do that. He's a Muslim too. What are you going to do if this person parks like this, he parks like that, he double parks, he does. Then there's chaos. So there has to be order. So just be mindful of that, huh? Wallahu alam.
Abdul Hakim GD from Fort Worth, Texas. Assalamu alaikum. Is it better to wait if my wife has been deemed barren, or should I seek a second wife?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, we have to get rid of the misunderstandings. We have to get rid of the misunderstandings. Tashihul mafahim al-khati'ah. We have to fix our brains. Getting a second wife does not mean there's something wrong with your first wife. That's not true. And that is from the propaganda of the Christians, of the Jews, of the atheists, quote unquote feminists, neo-feminists, whatever you want to call them. Watered down feminine Muslim men, or whatever, whoever it is. Getting a second wife does not mean that your first wife is ugly, or your first wife, it can't do this, so she doesn't have this, or this isn't enough, and that doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that. It is not haram, it is not disliked to marry a second wife just for the fact of having a second wife. I want another house, I want another home. I have a higher sex drive. I want something else, I want a different wife. There's nothing wrong with that. You can have one wife that's fertile and produce children, and I want another. I want more children. There's nothing wrong with that. But the people have become so apologetic, and so their minds has become halal mustaan, it's the neutered minds of the Islamic identity, and to fit in with the kuffar and the mushrikeen and trying to be like them and apologizing and fixing the deen to suit their desires. Allah says, وَلَا تَتَّبِعْ أَهْوَاءَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Don't follow their desires. They don't know. Allah says, and if the truth followed their desires, what will happen? The heavens and the earth will be corrupt and all those therein. So the Muslim is not to bend and warp the deen to suit these people and what they want and what they like. Why did Muhammad have 9 wives when he died? Why did he marry Aisha when she was so young? Why did the Prophet ﷺ take Safiya? She was a Jewish captive of war. And this and that. He killed her husband and so on and so forth because he did. That's why. Because he wanted to have 9 wives. That's why. Were there wisdoms? Of course there were wisdoms. Were there fruits and benefits? Of course there were. But Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was a man. He says, وَأَتَزَوَّجُ النِّسَاءِ. He says, and I marry women. فَمَنْ رَغِبَ عَنْ سُنَّتِي فَلَيْسَ مِنِّي. He says, if you want other than my way, then you're not from me. So it's just that simple. I don't have to marry a second wife because my first wife can't do this or isn't that. Is that a reality? Is that oftentimes the case? Is that an alternative and a solution? Without question. Instead of divorcing this woman or being unpleased, get a second wife. There's no question about that. But that isn't the only reason. That isn't there has to be a justification for it. You can't get a second wife unless something is wrong with the first wife. And wallahi, it is not me making this up. And it's not being extreme. You talk to most Muslims today, it's the first thing they'll tell you. Man and woman. Polygamy or polygyny, which I don't believe is mandatory to say polygyny, as many people they say. No, polygamy is correct English as well. Polygamy is correct English as well. And it's well known in Islam that a woman does not marry more than one husband. So it is no need to say polygyny. You don't have to say that. Proper English, you can say polygamy. And it doesn't mean women marrying more than one man husband. Polygamy is correct as well. So they'll say polygamy is permissible. We can't reject it. It's in the Quran, but it's because of a necessity. The Prophet married this woman because she was a widow. She was old. She was this. Her husband wasn't there. She had orphan children, so on and so on. La, you can't say that. You can't say that's the only reason. You can't say it's only permissible to marry if your first wife is missing a leg. And there are many women, they'll say this. I'll allow you to take on a second wife if I get sick. When I get old and wrinkled, then you can get married. 20 years later, our kids are in college, then you can get a second wife. La ilaha illallah. Who is in charge here, the man or the woman? Who is the qawwam, the man or the woman? Who has the hand, the talaq, in whose hand, the man or the woman? A woman has to ask for talaq. A woman has to pay ransom for talaq. A woman, she has to give the money back. Can the woman give the man back her virginity? No, she can't. At the same time, she has to do what? She has to make a fida, a ransom, because that's how Allah made it. بِمَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ بَعْضَهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. Because what Allah gave of preference over one sex over the other. If you can't accept that, if you can't swallow that pill, if this is too much of a chauvinistic male pig, then that's your problem. But that's what Allah Azza wa Jal has said. And it's that simple. A man, if he can take care of the first wife, he's just to her, he can marry 3 other women with her permission or not. Beautiful, non-beautiful, bearing of children, non-bearing of children, it is permissible. And it is not for the Jews and the Christians and the idol worshippers and the polytheists to dictate and to determine what Allah Azza wa Jal has legislated. So we have to get rid of this backwards thinking. I can't take on a second wife unless my first wife is in her deathbed and she's dying and she's broken. Abadan. The truth does not follow the falsehood. If a man doesn't want to take on a second wife, that's fine. Most of the ulama say that it isn't obligatory. Some of them say that it is. Some of the ulama say it's mandatory. And others say that it's recommended if you can. If you can do it, if you can be just. So a man, he says, I'm pleased with one wife. Or I don't have enough time. Or I don't have enough money. I can't afford 2 households. I'm barely making ends meet in 1 household. Or I don't want another mother-in-law. That's a nightmare. My first mother-in-law, father-in-law, newsy, always in my business. I don't want that again. But my first wife can't have children. And I love her. And she's dear to me. And I don't want to divorce her. But I want a child. Take on a second wife. Labas. That's fine. But that is not the legislation of Rabbul Alameen. The legislation of Allah Rabbul Alameen is that what? He can marry more than 1 wife with the proper conditions. Everybody clear this or not? Just like the other legislations or pieces of legislation, the people are very hypocritical, men or women. They'll accept the fact that a man has to take care of a woman, that a man is supposed to look after the woman, protect the woman. A woman isn't supposed to work. A woman isn't supposed to spend her money, no matter how much money she has. They'll accept that, but they won't accept the other rulings. أَفَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِبَعْضِ الْكِتَابِ وَتَكْفُرُونَ بِبَعْضِ. You accept some book, some part of the book, and reject other parts? Allah says, what is the reward of those who do that? Except for humiliation on the day of judgment. Except for humiliation. And on the day of judgment, they'll be placed in the punishment, as Allah says in the Quran. So it's not for us to cherry pick the deen. This is convenient, but that's not. Allah said, be just to the kuffar. Have dealings with them. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not prohibited to buy and to sell. But Allah also said about having hatred and disassociation and not being their friends and not taking them as protectors. So you can't take one part of the Quran and leave off what? The other parts. Everybody understand this? So many men, they fall into this. Many women, they fall into this. And also the concept of when a woman has money and when a woman works, the husband automatically expects her to take care of things and to look after things. Not based off of their agreement. They have an agreement that she's going to pay some of the bills. I don't have the money to do everything. I'm not there all the time. I can't if I wanted to. That's one thing. But she's a normal, traditional housewife or a semi-housewife. She works part-time or she comes home at night, etc. And the brother automatically expects her to pay half the rent, to pay the bills, to pay for food, to do this, to do that. No, la, akhi. You have to pay for everything. And if she wants to help out, if she wants to contribute, if she wants to add, then she can do so. And if she doesn't want to, she doesn't have to pay a dime. She can keep her money, she can hold her money, and you have to work and bust your hump as the man. And the same applies to polygamy. If a man wants to get married, he can get married. If a man doesn't want to get married again, but his wife can't have children, that's a different story. If the brother can't pay all the bills and the sister wants to help out, that's a different story. But it isn't mandatory, and that is not the condition for a woman with regards to her money and the wealth that she keeps. And the same applies to the condition of getting a second wife. It is not a condition that the first wife has to be what? An amputee, missing a leg, missing an arm. No, that's not a condition. Allah knows best. And the only reason why I went on speaking about this is because it's very dangerous, extremely dangerous. And the moment you compromise to your enemy, and you keep giving your enemy and submitting to your enemy and agreeing with your enemy, they gradually continue to encroach upon your land. And the next thing you know, they have half your country. And the next thing you know, they have most of your country, and then you're in a corner. And now there's a war for keeping your country. And the very first thing you were supposed to do was to shun them. Everybody understand this? We cannot help you. You come to our coast, starving, dying, diseased, go back to where you came from. We're not going to give you nothing. We're not going to bring you anything. We're not going to teach you anything. Get out. It's our land. We don't want to trade with you. Go. That was one of the most critical mistakes of the indigenous people of this country, was to help them out. Because for argument's sake, the first people that came were friendly, for argument's sake. Allah Alam if they were, for argument's sake. And they helped each other out and they gave each other for argument's sake. But the next generation and the third generation and the next group of pilgrims that came that didn't starve, they weren't eating this and drinking this. They didn't have to go through those sufferings. They came and says, whoa, the new world, it's a beautiful town. And they forgot about those indigenous people that helped them, that taught them how to farm, how to hunt. They taught them how to do this, they taught them how to do that. They gave them corn and brought deer. And when they had no food, they forgot about that. And then look at the country now. Look at the country now. When's the last time you seen an indigenous American? When's the last time? Forgotten about. Decimated. Their whole entire culture and civilization is gone. We'll put your name here. We'll give you a football team. We'll put you on the back of a coin. Have a couple shabby museums. And that's it. They should have shunned them. You can't have an inch. Go. We don't want you. Get out. And the same applies, metaphorically speaking, is when you start accepting the values of the kuffar and their interpretation and their explanation, the next thing you know, you've compromised half of your religion. And you start understanding your aqidah and your fiqh and your ibadat and the view and the vision of the non-Muslims. And then once you, what's left of your deen? Jihad, it really means this. Polygamy, it really means that. Al-Bara wal-Wala, it really means that. The beard really means this. Huh? Marrying this, that. So, no, it means that in 2018 in America, the Muslims are minorities. And then you have nothing left of your deen. The example of the country. Everyone understand the metaphor that we're trying to make? The similarity. So don't give up an inch of the true and correct orthodox interpretation of Islam. If the scholars of Islam differ, then that's a different story. The scholars of Islam differed on some of these issues hundreds of years ago, before there was a West. When Spain and Portugal was West. There was no America. There was no Canada. There was no Central America. Everybody understand this? They differed on these issues, different story. But the interpretation of 2018, this is what the verses of jihad mean in the Quran. This is what the verses, وَمَا لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. He who doesn't rule with what Allah sent down, they are the kafirun. This is what it means. When did this interpretation come? The 20th century? When the Muslims lived like this and lived like that? Or in the 16th, 15th, 14th centuries? A huge difference. Because the political, the social, the economic, the military states and affairs of the Muslims have a huge impact on the interpretation of the Islamic texts. Know that for sure. And Allah knows best.
Dahir Hassan, Toronto, Canada. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Is it haram if somebody says that if the Toronto Raptors make it to the NBA Finals, I'll buy you a ticket to go watch, to accept the ticket?
Tayyib. What's important is, it's not necessarily considered to be gambling, whereas a person promises a gift. If this happens, I'll give this to you. There aren't two people spending wealth. There aren't two people putting down money and one person takes everything. It's a different story. Now, the concept of being happy and exuberated over the Toronto Raptors and The Philadelphia Eagles and so on and so forth. That's a different story in itself. And that's an issue in itself. Sports, being involved in sports. But, I mean, let's be honest, okay? A brother says that sports are haram. You can't watch basketball. A'udhu billah. What are the Toronto Raptors? Or as we asked the brothers, we were in Peekskill about the playoffs. This was maybe 2 years ago. Nobody in the crowd said anything. They didn't know anything about the playoffs. This was in the wintertime. You don't know anything about the playoffs? You never watched football? You never heard of football? You don't know anything about the Patriots, about the Steelers? You never heard anything about that? Everybody had what? They had fake piety. They had fake piety. So the certain brothers said that sports are bad. You can't watch sports. You can't love sports. Maybe. Music, women, tights, etc. Alcohol, etc. Labas, mumkin. But how many other haram things are you falling into? Major, you beat your wife up. Your kids are hungry. Your son's shoes are too small. His feet hurt. And you have Allah how much hundreds of dollars on your shoes. So don't watch the Toronto Raptors. That's haram. Can't be happy if they win. But your wife has a wired jaw and a broken, a black eye. Your kids go to sleep hungry at night. It's cold in the house. Something's seriously wrong with your deen. Basketball is a bad, horrible thing. A'udhu billah. But look how you treat the people that you're around. You have a girlfriend or women that you're sleeping with. And all other types of major problems. So we have to be real with ourselves. So if the brothers like basketball, they like the Raptors, they like this, they like that, they like a little bit of sports every now and then, be real with yourself. That's all I'm going to say is be what? Be real with yourself. Wallahu alam.
MS London, UK. Akhi, is it haram to record videos as it has images?
I don't think it's haram. I wouldn't be doing it haram. If it was haram to me, I wouldn't be doing it. I try to hide my sins, my mistakes and my flaws. I try to hide them from the eyes of the people. So I don't think, me personally, only speaking about myself, if I consider it to be haram, I can only give you an answer based off of what I wouldn't be doing it. Next question.
AC London, UK. Is it permissible to wear products whose brand name are influenced by shirk? E.g., Nike was inspired by the goddess of victory, and logo design was influenced by its wings.
Jazakallah khairan for the information. I'll say this, and we don't want to go too deep, and it's already bad enough that the HadithDisciple live streams, classes, and the question and answer sessions are normally much more than just the Islamic information. It's history lessons, conspiracies, all types of other stuff that come up. Cultural references, poetry, and poets, and the list goes on. But when you start talking about logos, read the history of logos. Read the history of a logo. Who were the first people to use the logo? Where did it come from? And what's the purpose of a logo? You might be shocked what you find. And most logos of modern companies today, or many of them, we can say humbly, many of them have all types of stuff behind them. All types of symbolicism and historical things behind them. Whether shirk, kufr, or disobedience, homosexuality, Satanism, paganism, devil worship, you will be shocked. Mazda, Nissan, you'll be shocked. Cross, Parker, the Apple, iPhone, you'll be shocked. Read about the Apple. Why do iPhones have a bitten apple on them? Read about it. Read about the founder of the Apple computer. Read about it. Read about those who designed these things. You'll be shocked. And all of them, if you be willing to accept all of those different principles and values. So oftentimes, I'm not saying this about the questioner, but oftentimes people, they beat up on Nike. Nike is shit. You can't wear Nike. It's haram. You can't have this. You can't have that. Tayyib. And they have other things. As an example, Nautica. What does that mean? You have an image of a ship, a boat, a yacht. What is Nautica? What is the symbolicism of water, of the sea, of devil worship, of the constellations? Look at this, a pelican. What's that supposed to mean? Is it just a harmless bird? Or is it deeper than that? Is it just a bitten apple? Or is it deeper than a bitten apple? So if you want to boycott something or ban something because of some type of evil background, that's tayyib. But make sure you do it what? All around the board. Now, are certain logos worse than others? No question. No doubt about that. Certain logos clearly, based off of shirk and kufr, no question about that. And there are other logos that aren't necessarily directly based off of it. Nike. What is the name Nike? Where does it come from? Nikki. Nikaya. It's all different derivations of that name. These names derive from different ways. It's not just necessarily one thing. And the swoosh, just because it comes from the wings of this goddess of speed or victory, doesn't necessarily mean that it itself is symbolic of the goddess. Doesn't necessarily mean that. Let alone the days of the week, the days of the year. Monday, that's Moon Day, the day in which you worship the moon. What's tomorrow? Friday, the day of Friz, the Norse god that the Scandinavian Vikings used to worship. Are you going to not say that? Your paycheck, the ticket. Everybody understand this? So there are many, many things that are based off of shirk and kufr. Many things, many foods we eat. Desserts, all types of dishes, breakfast meals. That's based off of shirk and kufr and superstition. Don't take it from me, conspiracy theorists, a skeptic. Iqra'u, read, you'll find it in the books. And the crazy thing about most of these different symbols and these signs, 9 out of 10, they don't try to hide it. But the average person doesn't read. The average person doesn't care. The average person, his mind has been numbed by the social media. It's right there, it's plain knowledge. So the people that say, oh, you're conspiracy theory, oh, you're trying to make a conspiracy, it's Illuminati. No, akhi. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. The first revelation Muhammad got was to read, but you don't read. So therefore, they can feed you and stuff anything in your brain. And you have this on your shirt, on your watch, on your wallet, on your shoes, on your socks, on your underwear, your underpants. You have a symbol of homosexuality on the back of your behind. You don't even know. But Nikes are haram. So you got to be mindful what? You got to be mindful of this. If it's clearly symbolic of shirk and kufr, one thing. If it used to be or was based off of it or it's different or shirk, different story. Or the scholars themselves, they differ on where it comes from. Is this the god of wine or the god of something else? They don't agree that it's one specific god or deity. Or even if it's based off of a god or a deity. So this is what I feel with regards to Nike and with regards to any type of logo. Any type of logo. All right? Mercedes-Benz, BMW, all types of different logos. You read the history of them. And oftentimes they'll give you traditional explanation. This is what it means. The Nautica symbol is for traveling by sea. And you go, you dig deeper and you actually read and you'll find out that there was some type of god. There was a woman who crashed, who died. He was in love with her. And the list goes on and on and on. So just be mindful of this, huh? And Allah knows best.
M. from Brooklyn, New York. How come you pray all the salah fully during Umrah, etc., even though you are a traveler?
Allah knows best where a person is or how a person is doing, but in most cases in their Umrah, they're praying in congregation. Praying in congregation with the bus, or not even with the travelers in the masjid. You pray behind the Imam. The traveler who's behind the Imam is to make the normal amount as the Imam makes. As far as how long you're going to be there for Umrah, and when does a person become a resident with regards to prayer, that's a different fiqh issue. That's a different fiqh issue. So if you have the intention of staying for more than 4 days, that's one scenario. If you have the intention of, or you don't have an intention of staying more than 4 days, but you stay up to 19 days, 20 days, that's a different fiqh issue. We've explained that in our lessons on Ad-Durar al-Bahiyya, the chapter of traveler, the traveler's prayer. So it's a different fiqh issue. What's important is if you're by yourself, or you're leading other people in the prayer, and you're not considered a resident based off of the time, the estimation, the difference of the ulama, and you make the salah with 2 rak'ah, that's one thing. Allah knows best.
Abdul Hakim GD, Fort Worth, Texas. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I have seen a dream where my wife and I had a baby, and the messenger said, "Give me the baby." The way to him had sticks in the road. What might this mean? My wife and I are struggling getting a child.
What's important is, scholars of Islam say that dream interpretation has 2 main types, or 2 main styles. The first is general dream interpretation. A general template, in which the scholars of dream interpretation, because that's a separate field of study, as we've explained in our playlist on Sahih Bukhari, is that there's certain things which are symbolic and they're generally symbolic. If you see water in a dream, it means this. You see fire in a dream, it means that. If a person is handcuffed in a dream, it means this. Tied up, hog tied, it means that. Huh? A person sees rain, a person sees a river, a person sees an animal, the animal is black, all black. The animal isn't black. وهكذا. General templates. And the second way is interpreting a dream based off of the specific person. Like medicine. This is good for headaches, migraines. This is good for constipation. This is good for any other illness or ailment that you're suffering from. In general. But you have a heart condition, so you can't take this. You have a skin condition, so you can't take the leaves of eucalyptus. You can't take aloe vera. It's no longer good for you. We have to give you a substitute. Or you have this type of hyper problem, or this type of ventilation problem, or breathing problem. So that's what's making you feel that way, and not the side effect of the medicine. So everybody's dream is different based off of who they are as a person. And most importantly, the lifestyle that you lead. Most importantly, the what? The lifestyle that you lead. So with regards to a specific interpretation, if the brother would like to email me and give me some of his personal details with regards to his lifestyle and the lifestyle of his wife, general, not the specific things that's only for you, perhaps I can help you out. Whether I know the answer or whether I get the answer for you from someone who's more skilled and more qualified than me. Everybody understand this? Allah knows best.
Abu Ahmad from Philadelphia, PA. Assalamu alaikum. May Allah preserve you, Sheikh Mufti, and your family. As proceeds, I would like to ask if I never had the ability to make Hajj myself, is it permissible to make it for a disabled man?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Barakallah fik, Abu Ahmad, coming from the city of brotherly love. May Allah bless you and your family as well and keep you upon a sirat al-mustaqim until death. May Allah give you firmness in your grave. And may Allah resurrect you as a Muslim and allow you into paradise among His chosen slaves. Allahumma ameen. The scholars of Islam, they say that if a person has not made the mandatory Hajj of Islam, he is not allowed to make a Hajj for someone else. Do not make Hajj for someone else unless you yourself have made the mandatory Hajj. Not the voluntary Hajj, but the Hajj of Islam. And Allah knows best.
HW, Ottawa, Canada. Can one hold the opinion that you can touch the mushaf while on your menses, but also hold the opinion that it is recommended to hold it only while you have wudu? Do they contradict?
Inshallah ta'ala, this will be our last question tonight that we'll take tonight, and Allah's help is sought upon all beneficial things of this life and of the hereafter. What's important is they have the issue of taking an opinion. What's the ruling of taking an opinion? A student of knowledge researching, a layman getting a fatwa, a layman choosing, a layman having a little bit of ability to study, but also being a layman at the same time? It depends. So there are details with regards to, as we say, fatwa shopping. And I would say this, and I'm to blame as well. I can't free myself from the problem or from the issue. Yani, the concept of knowledge today and of fatwa today, alhamdulillah, there are many people that are still upon the traditional, authentic, ancient way, the proper way of giving a fatwa and answering a question. And there are many people, many of us, unfortunately, in which it just become chaotic, in which there's no principle, there are no principles, no values, no maxims, just whatever, or too many principles. I can't give a fatwa, I can't answer a question because kada. And that doesn't apply in 2018. That does not apply in 2018. Some scholars in 2018, if you compared them to scholars 200 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, what would they be? So that is, every time and place has specifics. And there are other people who don't value any of the laws and the rules of giving a fatwa or asking for a fatwa. Who they go to, who they ask, who they take as their mufti, who they take as the person to give them Islamic knowledge and advice. Oftentimes, social media, masjids today is chaotic. This person answering questions who has no business answering questions. This person not answering questions who's supposed to answer questions, but he refuses because I'm not qualified. These scholars, this one, that one, he's bigger than me, he's greater than me. Ibn Taymiyyah said this, kala, and leave the people as blind cattle. Let them wander blindly. And then there are people who have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, who have a little bit of knowledge and a lot of ignorance. Waliyadu billah. People who know one thing but they speak about other things, etc. is a problem. And the scholars of Islam, they have clearly laid down the rules and the principles of giving a fatwa and of asking a fatwa. They've laid down the rules of ijtihad They've laid down the rules of taqleed. They've laid down the rules of ittiba'. There are things in which they agree upon. And there are things in which there's more than one view. And there's different ways. And there are modern day issues as well. Things that did not exist in 1999. 1999 is not like 2018. 2005 is not like 2018. It's different. Let alone 1970, 1950, 1900 is different. Certain things have come. So all of these things have to be taken into consideration. Giving a fatwa, asking a fatwa, following a madhab, making your own ijtihad, reading, studying, mixing, at-talfiq, etc. Everybody clear on this or not? So what's important is that a student of knowledge should try his or her best to follow that which is the clearest to him or her. The clearest. I've studied this, I read what they said, Ibn Abbas says this, Ibn Uthaymeen, Imam Ahmed, kada. This is the view that I feel is most correct. Try your best. Bidhnillahi ta'ala. The layman is supposed to ask the alim, the learned person. When we say alim, the learned person, whether it's a student of knowledge, whether it's an actual sheikh, whatever level they're learned, to ask them the one that they trust and respect and ask them the ruling. Whether they give them the ruling themselves individually, or whether they make naqal, the people of knowledge say, the ulama say, I learned this. I came back from Medina only 1 year. I haven't graduated school yet, but there are certain things that I've learned. Someone comes up and he says, yeah, sheikh, yeah, akhi, they call him sheikh, he's young. Is it permissible for a woman to wipe over her khimar? And he just studied in his first year of college that it is permissible. He says, yes, it's permissible. The scholars say it's permissible. Salama did this. Uthaymeen said that. So la bas. Stepping out of your boundaries, answering questions in which you haven't studied, you haven't learned, you are not proficient in, that's a different story. Everybody understand this? So the layman is supposed to ask the one who's trusted, the one who is respected, and the one who seems to have good knowledge, well-versed, and the one who is most importantly has an amana, a trust. Someone who seems to be trustworthy, and someone who seems to be pious and righteous. Not perfect, but seems to be pious and righteous. So if you're a student of knowledge, read Subul al-Salam, read Muhalla, read Nail al-Awtar, read Fath al-Bari, read whatever you can. Listen to the different ulama and the mashayikh and the talabat al-ilm. If you're a layman person, ask the person that you trust. Whatever you find in the books with the proper understanding, stick to that. Regardless whether it's mixing and whether it's matching. Call it talfiq or whatever you want to call it. In this issue, I follow the view of Abu Hanifa. I feel that's the strongest view. In this issue, I follow the view of Ibn Hazm. In this issue, I follow the Jumhur. In that issue, I feel Imam Ahmad's view is the strongest. What's the mushkila? What's the problem with that? As long as it's based off of your research and what you feel is correct. You can't only follow one madhab. You can't mix and match madhabs. Who said that? Where does that come from? Follow what's the haqq, no matter who has it. Layman person, it's not necessarily supposed to do that. You're supposed to follow the teachings of the respected teacher. So they tell you that it's permissible to read it when you're on your menses, but best to have wudu, not best. And when we say it's permissible to recite the Quran if you're in a state of janaba, it's permissible for you to touch the Mus'haf al-Sharif and you don't have wudu, it doesn't mean that we say that it isn't best to do it. Best to have wudu. And the Mus'haf not being treated like a normal book, a special book with respect and special respect. There's nothing wrong with that. So one could say, a woman on her menstruation, she can read the Quran. Taha ma anzalna alayka al-Quran litashqa. She can read it by heart. She can touch it. One without wudu can touch it, can read it. It doesn't mean that it isn't necessarily what? Best. It isn't necessarily what? Best. But the concept of a woman not being allowed to touch it or not being allowed to recite it if she's in the state of menstruation or janaba, specifically menstruation, what is the clear-cut dalil from the kitab and the sunnah to state that? The dalil, which is sahih, first and foremost, authentic, and it's sarih, right to the point. Where's that at? Let alone affect the harm. 7 days out of every month, no Quran. 7 days out of every month, no dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How many adhkar have verses of the Quran in them? A woman can pray, can read the Quran, can touch the Mus'haf, can make certain adhkar before she goes to sleep when she wakes up. You don't think she's now a breeding ground or a target of shaitan? The sister who's a student of the Quran, what happens? 7 days out of the week, out of the month, no review. Just stop and think about that now. Look at yourself. If you're a serious student of the Quran, you go a day without review. How horrible do you feel? You go a day without class. You feel good or you feel bad? No doubt. 2 days. 3 days. Your Quran teacher said, where are you at? Why are you missing class? Did you miss 7 days in a row? You missed few classes. And it's a problem if you're an actual hardworking student of the Quran. So just imagine 5 to 7 days every single month. No Quran, no adhkar to have verses in the Quran. What's going to happen? Where's that going to lead to? Everybody understand this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. All good is from Him. We ask Him of His good and of His bounty. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to protect us and to keep us from the trials of this life and the trials of the Masih ad-Dajjal and from the punishment and the torment of the grave. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.